Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Chair, thank you for the opportunity to reply to some of the statements made in this debate. First, I think I'll just refer to a matter which Member Chris Hipkins raised, and that's in relation to a regulatory impact statement that he said police had made. No, that was the Ministry of Justice, and it related to the bill as first introduced to the House. In addition to that, this bill has been significantly changed since it was first introduced. It's a far more reasonable and fair bill and is much more tightly worded. There have been some personal attacks on members in this House, and I'm not going to bother dealing with those. However, I'm going to talk to rehabilitation. And I think with rehabilitation, there have been some comments made about how we should be doing more of it. That's exactly right. That's why we're doubling the amount of rehabilitation available in our prisons. And for any members of the House who would like to come and see some of the rehabilitation being done for prisoners, I'm very happy to help facilitate that through my office with corrections, because corrections would love to be able to show off the rehabilitation that they do. And certainly Mr Garrett's taken up that offer. Some other members have, and Mr Hipkins tells me he visits all the time. He's seen some of the rehabilitation work. Well, some excellent work being done. Excellent working. And of course, Mrs Chadwick says that it started years ago. Yes, it did, and it continues. That's why we're doubling it, Mrs Chadwick. We're happy to say that, and I'm glad that she's saying it, saying she's happy. Mr Cosgrove's dealt with some issues that he's put in a supplementary order paper. I've had a look at them. No, we won't be supporting them for very good reasons, and it's nothing to do with him not coming cap in hand, because frankly we'd rather he didn't. Come cap in hand. We're very happy to have him come and talk to us, but not cap in hand, because the sight would be too bad. And I might be, I don't think my stomach could be able to cope with it. The proposed amendment to section clause 86D, that would actually reduce the certainty of the penalty, moves away from the fact that stage 3 sentence is meant to be a very serious penalty in all cases, because the offender is continuing to commit very serious offences which, in fact, victimise people. That would reduce any deterrent force of the bill. It would effectively, if it's going to deter people from this sort of offending, it needs to be very certain. Section 86A, clause there, clause 5 he's got. Well, he says, should we exclude accidental or negligent manslaughters? Well, actually, there's a degree of negligence required to establish liability for manslaughter as it is now. And Mr Cosgrove has pointed out he's not a lawyer, and this is one of the issues that somebody could mistake. So I'm sure he's just made a mistake there. Clause 86D, introduce a discount of 25% for a guilty plea at stage 3. Well, this would reduce a 20-year sentence for sexual violation to one of 15 years. So we're talking about here a third striker on an extremely serious offence. And despite everything that the opposition's talked about tonight, these people generally commit hundreds of crimes along the way to get to that. Loads and loads of opportunities to reform, but Mr Cosgrove would rather they got off lightly on their third offence if they want to discount a 25% plea. Inserting resulting in a custodial sentence as a threshold instead of conviction. Well, that goes back towards the bill as introduced. It's a change. The conviction threshold was necessary. Otherwise, we'd probably have nobody ever locked up under this on the third strike, and Mr Cosgrove knows that. We're not prepared to buy into that. Then we have section 86C to amend subsection 4A to authorise judges not to order a prison sentence at stage 2 be served without eligibility for parole. Well, I think that's basically the status quo now. And we've campaigned very firmly on being able to remove parole for the worst repeat violent offenders. Parole is not a right, it is a privilege. And it's about time people recognise that. And quite clearly the opposition doesn't. It's very important to understand that when someone's on parole, they are actually having to be looked after by corrections. Corrections will be the ones who have to try and look after them. And for some of these violent recidivist offenders, frankly, it's just too unsafe for the community. I'm not prepared to be the minister who goes out and says, I cared more about trying to look after the prisoner than I cared about the victim. and that's not the sort of minister I'm prepared to be.